Have you ever had one of those moments where someone else's good news made you feel smaller? Maybe your best friend got a promotion while you were still grinding away at the same desk. Or your sibling bought a house while you were still figuring out rent. Now imagine that person is your spouse, the one you love, the one you share a bed, a bank account, and a life with. And suddenly, their win feels like your loss. Today, we're talking about something most couples never say out loud. What really happens inside a husband's mind when his wife starts out-earning him, out-ranking him, outshining him. And I promise you this goes way deeper than simple jealousy. Let's get into it. Here's the scenario. Your wife gets promoted to senior manager at a Fortune 500 company. Same week, you got laid off. Or maybe your side hustle just collapsed after months of work, and her part-time freelancing just brought in more than your old salary. Some husbands pop the champagne and mean it. They're genuinely, openly thrilled for their partner. But others? The room gets cold. Nobody says anything, but everyone feels it. Why does that happen? Here's the thing. It's not just jealousy. It's not even really about her success. It's about identity. And this is where it gets wild. From the time boys are little, they absorb a very specific message. Not always spoken out loud, but it's everywhere. In movies, in sports, from fathers and grandfathers. From the way the world rewards men who provide. The message is your worth is tied to what you produce. Your value is what you can protect, provide, and achieve. So when the woman you love starts achieving more than you, it doesn't just sting, it feels like a threat. Not to your marriage, to your identity. Psychologists call this identity threat. It's that deep, gut-level panic. When something you've built, your entire sense of self around suddenly feels unstable. And here's what makes it so dangerous. Most men don't even realize it's happening. Think about Marcus. Marcus had been married for 5 years. He was a mid-level account manager. His wife, Danielle, had been grinding for years in marketing. Then one day, she came home and told him she'd been promoted to director. He hugged her, said the right words, ordered dinner to celebrate, but later that night, while she was on the phone, sharing the news with her mom, he was sitting alone in the garage, just staring at the wall. On the outside, he'd done everything right. But inside, the voice in his head wasn't celebrating. It was calculating. She's a director now. What am I? That gap between what he showed and what he felt. That's the wound that quietly bleeds into a marriage. Now let's talk about the data, because this isn't just anecdotal. Research has found something that seems almost counterintuitive. Couples where the wife earns more than the husband actually have a higher divorce rate. Wait, let that sink in. More money coming in, more financial stability, and yet, the relationship becomes more fragile? Here's why. Studies show that when a man becomes financially dependent on his wife, even partially, his self-esteem takes a significant hit. And low self-esteem in a marriage doesn't just stay quiet. It leaks. It spills. It shapes every conversation, every argument, every silence. And here's the part nobody talks about. The way it comes out isn't always explosive. Most of the time, it's subtle. It looks like this. He starts nitpicking things he never cared about before. He makes small comments that undercut her confidence. He forgets to ask about her day at work. Or he asks, but there's something flat in his voice. No warmth, no curiosity. She comes home late after closing a big deal. He says, "You must be exhausted." But the way he says it doesn't sound like concern. It sounds like a quiet accusation. This is what one psychologist described as a psychological defense maneuver. If he can make her feel guilty for succeeding, she'll stop talking about it. She'll downplay her wins. She'll shrink herself so he feels bigger. And the tragic part? She often does, not because she's weak, but because she loves him. And she can feel that something is off, even if she can't name it. So she starts hiding her good news. She stops bringing up the raise. She plays down the praise her boss gave her. And just like that, his insecurity starts to quietly reshape her life. Let that sit for a moment. Now, I want to be clear about something. Not every husband responds this way. Some men genuinely light up when their wife succeeds. They brag about her to their friends. They're her biggest cheerleader in the room. So what separates these two types of men? It comes down to where your self-worth lies. If your sense of value is built on external things, your job title, your paycheck, being the provider, then someone else's success will always feel like a threat. Because those things can change overnight. But if your self-worth is rooted in something internal, your values, your character, the kind of partner and person you choose to be, then her winning doesn't subtract from you. It adds to you. There's a couple I want to tell you about. The husband, Derek, had been a stay-at-home dad for 2 years, while his wife built her business from scratch. When her annual income crossed 6 figures, he threw her a party, decorated the living room himself, made her favorite meal. In an interview, he said something that stuck with me. Her success is our success. When she wins, I win. That's just math. He wasn't performing gratitude. He wasn't suppressing some hidden resentment. He genuinely saw their marriage as a team. One economy, 2 contributors. And you know what? That's not just a sweet story. That's a completely different operating system. Because here's the truth about the husbands who struggle with this. Their problem isn't that they love their wives less. Their problem is that they're terrified. Terrified that if she doesn't need him financially, she won't need him at all. Terrified that the world will see him as less of a man. Terrified that the version of himself he's been performing for years is finally being exposed as not enough. And that fear, when it goes unspoken, turns into distance, into coldness, into the slow erosion of a relationship that used to feel safe. So what do you actually do about it? Step 1 is the hardest one. You have to say it out loud. Not to perform vulnerability, not to make it her problem, but because naming the feeling is the only way to stop it from running. The show behind the scenes. Something like, honestly, part of me feels a little threatened by this. Not because I'm not proud of you, but because I'm not sure where I fit anymore. And I need to figure that out. That one sentence? It changes everything. Because now she's not guessing. Now she's not carrying guilt for something she didn't do wrong. And now the two of you can actually talk about it. Step 2 is rewriting the role. The old script says the husband earns, the wife supports. But most modern marriages don't look like that anymore. And honestly, they shouldn't have to. If she's the primary earner right now, maybe he leans into what he's great at. Running the household, being present for the kids, building something on the side that's meaningful to him. That's not failure. That's smart team strategy. Every championship team has different players in different roles. Nobody calls the point guard a failure, because he doesn't score as many points as the shooting guard. They win together. Step 3 is letting go of what other people think. This one is brutal because it doesn't just live in your head. It shows up at family dinners, at cookouts with friends, when someone asks, "So what do you do?" and the answer feels complicated. But here's what I want you to remember. Other people's opinions of your marriage are not data. They're noise. The only thing that matters is whether the two of you feel seen, valued, and supported by each other. Nobody else is in that house with you. Nobody else knows your story. And step 4 is building a shared vision. Stop keeping score. Her promotion isn't her win. It's your family's win. His new skills, his growth, his presence, that's your family's win too. When you stop measuring who's contributing more and start measuring how you're building together, the whole game changes. Her raise funds the vacation. His availability means the kids actually have a parent at pickup. His passion project might become next year's income. Everything counts. Everything contributes. Here's where I want to land. We grew up with a story about what a man is supposed to be. And that story served a purpose once. But it's become a cage for a lot of people. A cage that makes men feel ashamed of their wives' success. A cage that makes women feel guilty for their own achievement. A cage that quietly destroys marriages that could have been extraordinary. You don't have to live in that cage. The strongest version of love isn't the kind where one person shines and the other dims to make them comfortable. It's the kind where you genuinely, deeply, fiercely want the other person to become everything they're capable of, even if it means they outgrow the role you thought you'd always play. Especially then, because a relationship where both people are growing, that's not a threat, that's a life. If you're someone who felt something while watching this, maybe a little uncomfortable, maybe a little called out, sit with that. That discomfort? It's not a sign that something is wrong with you. It's a sign that something in you is ready to change. And that's where growth always starts. Not with perfection, with honesty. A marriage isn't a competition. It's a garden. And in a garden, when one thing blooms, you don't pull it out of the ground. You make sure everything around it gets enough light.